Alright, I'm back again for a little bit more gas mask talk this week. It pays to actually check what's in your stockpile too. As you can see from the title, we're going to continue taking a look at the M40 series masks. And as it turns out, I did have one of the newer versions still in my stockpile. So we're going to take a look at that this time. And this is actually an FR-M40, which I mentioned before, that was manufactured by the 3M company. 3M took over some of the production contracts for this mask and also released it to be available to non-federal government agencies like local police departments, industrial users that needed heavy-duty respiratory protection, and really anybody off the street that wanted to pay the price and buy one was available to buy an M40 after 3M started making them. I did mention that a lot of these masks were marked prominently with the fact that they were not government property. This one isn't, in fact. It's also a size medium, which, as I said, I'd prefer a large size, but I can wear and seal a medium. So there is that going for it anyway. So let's try to get this on, and we'll start going from there. Alright, we've got a good seal. What differentiated the later M40A1 models from the early production was there was some changes to the oral nasal cup inside, but that wasn't the real significant difference. The major difference was this second skin that's over the outside of the green mask here. As I mentioned in my previous video on the early issue M40, those masks had a vulnerability due to their silicone rubber construction they were made out of. While it made them comfortable to wear, they were vulnerable to corrosive effects from blister agents like mustard gas, lewisite, things like that. So the mask had to be issued with a second skin to cover up the silicone material that might be exposed to those kind of agents. Over the course of the life of the mask, the system used for doing that was changed a few times, and this is an example of the final version. The early version I showed you previously had the second skin actually attached to the rubber hood that you would wear over your head too. With basically what amounts to Velcro fasteners in various places, holding it in place over the skin of the mask itself. And the problem with that is it didn't seal very well, which was kind of the whole point of the thing. You would often get ripples and bumps and other little things trying to tighten it down, and that kind of defeated the purpose of it sealing tightly. So the second skin was revised to a format the first time similar to this, which was basically a piece of rubber that went over the mask. I'll show you some pictures of it separately later. I'm not going to take it off of my mask though. You'd have to remove the canister, the voice emitter, the outserts, and the entire outlet valve assembly here to get this skin off. While they were removable, they were not intended to be. Pretty much once you put it on the mask, unless it was damaged or otherwise contaminated somehow, the second skin was supposed to stay on. And when they first issued it, with this new improved skin, the skin had a ridge around it with an almost definable bump of rubber that if you've ever seen a British S10 gas mask, it looked like that. And that served as a place to basically rest the hood up against. It was a hood stop to keep it from sliding around and in the proper location. Eventually, I guess they figured that wasn't necessary, and we got this style mask, second skin, where it's basically smooth all the way around, other than a little bump at the chin here to help locate the hood, and this flap that helps you get a better seal in the chin area. So this is the final model of second skin that was issued with the M40s, and these remained with the masks until they were out of service. And you can still buy these separately, and it's a very strong recommendation. If you have an M40, you should get it with a second skin if you're planning on using it for any actual serious survival or prep uses. Now, as we explained, the first issue hood that came with these masks had the second skin sewn actually into the rubber material of the rest of the hood. With the revised design, that was unnecessary, and these simple hoods with an open face were issued in their place to be used with the mask. These are also, as I mentioned last time too, they're good because they can be adapted to almost any gas mask out there to improve your head and shoulder protection from agents. So they're a good pickup pretty much regardless of what model mask you're using. So now we'll get the hood on, and through a magic of a sweet transition, we'll come back and we'll have the hood on for you. Alright, we've got the second model hood on now. As you can see, it doesn't cover up this area of the mask where the second skin is. It's similar to the hood that came in the earlier version, other than the missing piece of rubber over the face that's not necessary anymore, although the zipper was eliminated. It just has a drawstring and a couple of under shoulder straps to keep it in place. The filter canister here is not government issue either. This is the FR-15 that is also manufactured by the 3M company. It's a filter canister that's fully NBC rated also for handling all different kinds of nuclear, biological, or chemical agents. And it's available to the public also, much like the mask is. And I said it's highly recommended if you plan on wearing this mask for anything serious, that you get an in-date filter from somebody that's providing them, like either 3M or that blue Mestel safety one that I wore with the early version of the M40. Because when we're looking at survival and prep situations, really this mask isn't a lot of good if you don't know how to wear it and put it on, and know how the details and how to check it for maintenance flaws and other things like that. So if you're just going to buy it and stuff it in a bug out bag and stuff it on sometime for that first time you need it, you may be in for a surprise if you're not familiar with the equipment or how it works, that you may be dealing with broken, obsolete, or otherwise out-of-date stuff, and you're only kidding yourself that you're getting any protection at all. And one aspect of that is definitely making sure that you have a current, up-to-date, unopened filter ready to use when you need it. Besides having the manual, something else I didn't show you last time either is these preventative maintenance checklist cards that were frequently issued with the mask also. These little 10-page flip cards that I'll show you a picture of detail areas of the mask you should check and be familiar with for go or no-go, or things that have to be replaced when you need to use it before it can be used safely. So having a set of these cards is also a good thing to have in your collection, besides becoming familiar with the mask and not putting it on for the first time ever when you actually need to use it. Now my mask was acquired from the secondary market, so I don't have an official carrier. The bag that came with this one when I got it was this Blackhawk bag. It's a generic bag for gas mask that can either be worn over the shoulder or attached to a belt in your leg. It's a decent enough bag and it'll do the job. And they're pretty common on the secondary market also. Another thing you may have noticed different is that I've put the tinted outserts on these. They have a very dark gray tint as opposed to the clear ones. And besides providing you protection from sun, they may have another benefit. And that is, I'd say most people you encounter would already be intimidated by someone wearing a gas mask. When you have the dark outserts on and they can't see your face or eyes or anything at all, this mask is probably even a little bit more scary and intimidating then. And that may be an advantage in some situations. One last little thing I didn't show you last time. An issue, of course, many service members, just like the general public, need vision correction. In fact, I do also, and I don't have it fitted in this mask currently, but there are ways to get prescriptions inside without using contact lenses, which are not recommended, by the way. Because if they fall out or you get something in your eye otherwise, having the lens in there can make it even worse. There were a couple of different series of inserts that were authorized to go inside the M40 series mask, and I'll show you one of them here. This wire frame was the first issue and is now considered obsolete. But your prescription lenses would go in the inside part, and these metal loops could be placed inside the lenses inside to hold the frame in place so that you could see through it. This was a similar style that was used on the older M17 mask too. Later on, a revised mounting, it was basically just a plastic clip that held the frame in front of you, was attached in this central area here so that the frame hung in front of your eyes. And you could find those on sale also and pick them up if you have a vision correction needs. These days it's very easy to find a company that will put your prescription into a set of frames you provide, and fairly cheaply as long as it's nothing sophisticated. So maybe that's a good subject for a future video. I'll display some of the vision correction options that are out there and how you can get it done. So finally, it's easier to recommend this version of the M40 over the earlier one. It still has the issue where the silicone rubber is vulnerable to some kind of agents, but the improvements to the mask make it a much better choice than the early ones if you're looking for a military-style mask. And M40s, including fairly recent ones made by 3M, are fairly cheap on places like eBay right now. So they have that going for them as well. Another advantage that's not as obvious is that although they're out of service, they're still fairly recent, and it's not hard to come by the necessary parts to keep a mask in good shape, and many times you can still find the parts separately, or other masks you may be able to cannibalize to have to a stash of spare parts. Again, if you're considering this for any serious protective use, or might possibly be using gas yourself in a survival or prep situation, you want to have the mask, know how to use it, and also have some necessary spare parts. So you can pick up things like head harnesses, drinking tubes, and the outlet valve cover. That outlet valve disc is definitely a key component that needs to be working properly, because without that valve, basically your entire protection system is compromised, as the mask opens and then needs to close when you breathe back in. If there's dirt or that valve curls up or gets worn or is missing, the mask is useless. So definitely consider getting a small stockpile of parts if you're planning on using the mask for anything serious. It might be a good idea to get involved with someone that actually has worn them in either a military or a civilian industrial setting, say, and spend some time actually wearing it before you actually have to use it for real. Among other things, if people want out here, I have the ability where people can wear them and face actual tear gas and pepper spray themselves in an isolated area where we won't alarm anyone by having a large group of people wearing masks and protective suits. So, if you know any other survivalists or preppers or anyone with experience with the masks, hit them up and learn something about it before you have to use it for real. That's all for this time, so I hope you found it interesting. Send me any questions or suggestions for future videos, and thanks for watching. See you next time.